Hello everyone, this is Sailaja. I have completed my post-graduation in chemistry and I have a more than 15 plus years of experience in teaching. So I'm interested to give you explanations based out of CSIR net syllabus so that I'm planning to give from this module. In this particular video, we can discuss about the types of chemical bonds. Atoms generally do not just operate in isolation. If that is the case, the whole universe, including us, would just be a bunch of atoms only around us. But now the question is that how do atoms bond? So the answer is that there are several types of bonds: ionic bond, covalent bond, metallic bond. So we need to understand what are these types of bonds. And to understand it better, let us get a periodic table of elements right over here. So let us say that we are dealing with a group 1 element. Let us take sodium element. What is interesting about group 1 element is that they have one valence electron. That is, neutral sodium has one valence electron like this. In this diagram, sodium, this is only one valence electron. Now let us go to the other end of the periodic table. This is sodium, and other end of the periodic table will take chlorine. Chlorine. Look at this chlorine. Chlorine is a halogen. Halogens have 7 valence electrons. So chlorine valence electrons would like this. Just I'm marking like this, the 7 valence electron for the chlorine. So chlorine's valence electrons 7 for a neutral chlorine. And so you could imagine chlorine would like to get another electron in order to complete its outer shell. But especially the top of these halogens like oxygen, nitrogen, etc., these are very electronegative. They like to pull electrons. Sodium wants to lose the electron and chlorine wants to gain an electron. It may be a chlorine will take an electron from the sodium. Just for simplicity, let us just imagine that these are only two elements, and let us imagine that this chlorine is able to pull an electron from the sodium. So what is going to happen in this case? The sodium is then going to become a positively charged because it is going to lose an electron. So it is sodium cation, a positive ion. And then the chlorine is now going to gain an electron. So it is going to become a chlorine anion. Anion is a negative ion. Ion means it is charged. And these two characters attract each other, or another way to think of it, they are stick together, or another way you could think about it, they are going to be bonded each other and they will form a compound of sodium chloride NaCl. And notice the whole compound here is neutral, and this type of bond between two ions, you might guess what it is called. It is called an ionic bond. So that is about the ionic bond. Let us continue for the next type of the bond, covalent bond. Here, let us take two oxygen atoms. A neutral oxygen has 8 electrons total. You can see in this particular diagram. But 6 of them are in its outer shell. And let us imagine two oxygen atoms. Each oxygen atom has 6 valence electrons in outer shell. You have one oxygen on right hand side and another oxygen on the left hand side. This is oxygen 1 and this is another one. And outer shell has 6 valence electrons of each. Now, what is interesting here is the shared electrons. These are going to cause these oxygens to stick together. From the left oxygen point of view, it had 6 valence electron, but now it is able to share 2 more. So left oxygen could say, I get to have 6 electrons that I'm dealing with, and the same thing is going to true if of the oxygen on the right hand side. If they do not stick together, if they are not sticking together, these electrons not going to be shared. So what we have formed here is known as a covalent bond. And what is interesting in it allows both of these oxygens in some ways to be a more stable. Remember, each of these bonds, each of these lines represent the 2 electrons. That is this one. I'm just pointing. So one of the electron for oxygen 1 and another one for the second oxygen, and this is the electron outermost, another electron of oxygen 1, and this is another electron of the another oxygen. So these two are sharing and these two are sharing. So you can find a bond between 2 oxygen atoms like this. And this is called the covalent bond. And lines represents 2 electrons. Here we have the 2 lines. Each line represents the 2 electrons are sharing between 2 atoms. Now let us continue for the metallic bond. I'm going to talk about is known as a metallic bond now. Let us just take one of our metallic atoms. Iron is maybe one of the most referred to the metals. Let us say we have a bunch of iron atoms. There are just atoms and they are going to be neutral. But when they mushed together, they will form a metallic bond because they are metals. And what is interesting about metallic bonds is that metals like to share their electrons with the other metal. It forms like a sea of electrons. So what is looking here, each of the irons lose an electron. So let us say this is iron plus. I'm just marking. Let us take an example, iron plus. This is iron plus, Fe plus. That is Fe plus. So it has a positive charge. And other all iron ions, all these are the iron ions, the small black lines are there, all are the iron ions. Also, you can understand that from this particular diagram. This is the not for iron, it is for any metal. A general architecture for the representation of metallic bond of any metal. And this is example of iron. So we can understand easily from this particular diagram. So you can imagine that they have its positive charge because they all have contributed an electron. It is a sea of electrons. So you can have an electron here, which has a negative charge. And so you can imagine these positive ions are attracted to the sea of negative electrons. Another way to think about it is that metals, when they bond in metallic bonds, they will have overlapping valence electrons. And those valence electrons are not fixed to just one of the atom. They can move around. So it conducts the electricity because these electrons can move around quite easily. So you can bend it easily and it does not break. So that is all about the metallic bond information. So this is the end of the types of bonds. Thank you for attending.